Hey everyone, welcome back to Mental Notes with Matt. Today's episode is incredibly special to me because it's not just a conversation, it's a full circle moment. When I was around 14 or 15 years old, I took a class at Middlesex County College in New Jersey on how to make it in TV commercials and soap operas. I was this wide-eyed teenager who loved performing, obsessed with comedy and film, and trying to figure out whether I actually had something to offer. That class changed everything for me, not just because of what I learned, but because of who was teaching it. Ron Millkie was the first professional acting teacher who saw something in me. And instead of just letting me walk away when the class ended, he called my mother a few weeks later and said he thought I had real potential. From there, I ended up in his New York City acting class. And for the next few years, that became my home base as a young artist. It shaped so much of who I became, not just in my career, but in the way I listen, express myself, and stay grounded in what's real. Ron is someone who has dedicated his life to acting, teaching, and shaping people. And while a lot of people may know him from his iconic role as Officer Dorf in the original horror classic Friday the 13th, I know him as a teacher, a mentor, and someone who helped me believe in myself long before I fully knew who I was. So today we're sitting down for a conversation. I honestly don't know where it will go, but I know I want to better understand the man who made such an impact on my life, and in doing that, hopefully invite you to reflect on the people who have shaped yours. So let's get into it. Ron Millkie, it's really great to have you on as a guest. I really appreciate your time, and I'm grateful that you're willing to have this conversation with me.
Oh, Matt, I'm honored to be a guest on your podcast. It's great to touch base after so many years, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. I love the fact that even though a few years may go by in between you and I getting together, I feel like we always kind of pick right up where we left off, and that's a testament to the long-standing relationship that's been built on respect for all of these years. So given that, I think when I was younger, I knew you as my acting teacher, but I don't think it went much deeper than that. So I'm really curious about the earlier life of Ron Millkie. I mean, what drew you to acting? Was there a specific moment that lit that spark, or what was your way into this profession?
Well, in dealing with young actors, or not necessarily young either, by the way, any age, it's evident on the first time they pick up a script. In other words, actors are born, not made. So when you came to my class, well, actually at Middlesex College, I saw that you had talent. And that goes for most people that I've met who I've recruited into my acting class or taught on the road at various colleges, or when I was touring with the New York Models Contracts. And it was evidence they had talent from the very first shot, the very first time they picked up a script.
What was it like for you? I mean, were you an actor before you were a teacher? I mean, obviously you had that iconic role as Officer Dorf, which many of your fans love, that iconic role. But what led up to that role? I'm really curious about how you kind of broke into the industry.
Well, I was already teaching before I did Friday the 13th. It started with, I remember somebody called me and asked me to take over his acting class. And then he got ill, and I took over the class, and it just grew from there. And then I was invited to the Modeling Association of America, the Waldorf Astoria. And I met a lot of people, usually a lot of former beauty queens who were now had very successful modeling schools in various cities, Nashville, Miami, Chicago. I've been all over the country. And so I was invited to come to their cities and teach my 2-day, 3-day seminar, Success in Soap Operas, TV Commercials, and Film. And so that's where it started. And then I had met someone from Hofstra University, and I was teaching there, not credited courses, just weekend non-credited seminars, and then Middlesex, and then also Manchester, Connecticut. So I was teaching all over the place, and then I had my New York acting class going also. Previous to that, I did what most actors do: waiter, uh,
Hmm.
uh, maitre d', bus boy, movie theater usher, whatever we could do to make ends meet.
The hustle.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So what do you remember about those early years of teaching actors in New York? You know, you took over that class for somebody and that kind of it seems like that kind of plant the seed for this becoming a weekly thing that you did, and it's been going on for a very very long time, decades at this point.
Yeah, well, it was more out of necessity, you know. I
Right.
now I had a gig where if I wasn't acting, which was most of the time, I was able to make an income teaching, and it was quite lucrative for many years. Like when I was traveling around with Linda Bennett and her New York models contracts, and then I would be flying to different cities and teaching hundreds of young aspiring models, women, men, and children, and then some would come to New York and through various it was always recommendations and so forth. But yeah, it was, I'm so glad I did that because it was very rewarding, and to this day, I still keep in touch with some of my former students like you and a few others, and, not only were, they former students, we formed friendships and relationships that were wonderful. It meant a lot to me in my career as a teacher and actor.
Yeah, I remember when I was first taking your class, you had mentioned that you had taught Lacey Chabert. Is that right?
Yeah,
I think I
yes,
remember that correctly, right? Before she shot up into stardom. So there have been a number of people I think that have kind of gone through your class and have risen to fame.
yes. In fact, some I don't even know. You mentioned someone who's a famous screenwriter out in LA now.
Yeah,
What was
Richard Keith. Yeah, he's
Yes,
done extraordinarily well.
yeah,
He came through your
and
class as well. Yeah.
so, I met Lacey when I was down, I believe, in New Orleans doing a Metairie, actually, doing a seminar, and she and her mom and her sister came to New York. They took a big chance. Her mom pulled the girls out of school and came to New York. I says, "Oh my gosh," and they got an apartment, and both of the girls were signed by a big agency, and within a matter of months, Lacey Chabert was on Broadway in Les Mis.
Amazing.
And from there on in, it was just, one thing led to another, and she became famous, I guess, on Party of Five.
Yes.
And what is she doing now, Matt? Are
I
you,
have no idea. I remember Mean Girls was one of the big ones that I think, you know, aside from that earlier success that she had, that was one of the big ones that helped her to blow up. I don't know that I've seen a lot of her necessarily lately, but I think that she's extraordinarily well known.
yes,
Over the years, you've helped so many actors kind of break into the industry, myself included. And it's interesting because, you know, Lacey Chabert, you just said that within a matter of months, her life basically kind of turned upside down. She became a celebrity. She became someone that was in high demand. And I feel like that's not often the case. That's more often not the case for actors. There are so many talented people out there that will never be seen by a larger audience. And I remember in those early days in your class, I wish I still had this notebook because I used to take notes religiously in your class. And I remember you having this sort of checklist of, you know, what it takes to be successful. And I remember talent was a few down the list. I feel like,
uh,
you know, who you know,
yeah,
luck, you know, being in the right place at the right time. These were things that at a very young age I came to understand. And I think really helped me going into the audition room, knowing that you can be extraordinarily talented, but you may never, you know, book a role that's going to change your life.
let's see if I can remember. They were in my first book, How You Can Appear in TV Commercials,
Aha.
which I co-wrote with another actor, Ray Carlson, but
Okay.
I wrote most of it myself. And we listed the five prerequisites. Let me see if I can
That's
remember.
it.
Yeah. Number one was ambition and desire.
Yes.
And that's so true. How you were a very fired up kid. That's why
Yes.
you did well. You got that milk commercial that ran for years. You must
Yep.
have made a fortune on it. And then number two, I'm having trouble with this one. I think it might have been knowing who you are and what you have to offer.
Yes.
You can make of that what you will. Number three is talent. Of
Yes.
course, you have to have talent. but it's not the number one prerequisite. It's
I
just
agree.
not. You have to have the drive. And 4 is something else.
I
I
feel like it may have been something like who you know,
That's number 5. That was number 5.
okay.
It's who you know.
Being in the
That
right
that
place at
could
the
be
right
number 1.
time.
That could that could be number 1 too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Right.
I think that in 2025, you see so many of these older celebrities who have kids, and a lot of those kids you kind of see in these starring roles now too. So they definitely rode that wave of I know somebody.
It was tough being the child of a celebrity,
Yeah,
and some of them did well, like, Jane Fonda and, um, who's John Voight's daughter, married to Brad
Angelina Jolie. Yeah,
Angelina Jolie, quite a few, and then most of them were just disasters, drug addicts,
yeah.
suicides, terrible, terrible, if especially if they became child stars, something that goes along with that, but some of them did quite well, and of course, it helped having a famous name. Look, Jeff Bridges, he became a bigger star than his father, Lloyd Bridges, and there are many, many that had, the name that certainly helped.
You're right about that too. It's a little bit dangerous going into that business as a young person. I mean, we've definitely heard dozens and dozens of stories of young people being tainted by being a part of Hollywood, and I'm grateful that I kind of dodged that bullet. I think that had I not stopped going out for auditions and booking things and gone to college, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to believe that I wouldn't have gone down that path, but you definitely see the intoxication of working in the industry at a young age before
Yes,
you're fully realized as a human being.
that's a very good word, intoxication. Yes, we are you once you get that, you're set for life. You know,
Absolutely.
it's something you can't leave it and you love it so much, and I like that intoxication of
Yeah.
being an actor, right.
I also firmly believe in that first tenet of having ambition and desire. It has to be first and foremost that this is what you want. I think that I've heard a lot of people say if there's anything else in the world that you're good at that you would be pretty happy doing, do that. don't don't go down the path of being an actor because of how difficult it can be for so many people and
Right.
frustrating and dealing with that kind of rejection day in and day out.
Yes. I remember, the philosopher Joseph Campbell,
Yes.
who passed away a few years ago. He was on a talk show, one of the famous talk show hosts of the time, I don't remember, and the talk show host asked him, "Well, what's your philosophy of life?" And Joseph Campbell said, "Follow your bliss."
Mm.
So there you go.
Yeah. If it makes you happy, if it brings joy to your life and purpose, it's probably something that you want to entertain. And I grew up loving Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was one of those people that I idolized. And I mean, I think physically you probably saw that in my energy bringing to the room. And, I remember a quote, and I actually spoke to somebody recently, and we talked about this quote, but, you can fail at the thing that you don't want to do. So you may as well go after the thing that you really do want to do, because if you fail, at least you tried at something that you wanted.
Right. Yeah, because you could do something else and still not be successful at that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so, I mean, it seems from my perspective that you've never wavered. You've always been within this journey as an actor, as a teacher, but also always within the arts. Have there been times where you've kind of questioned that, where you felt like maybe I should have gone in a different direction? Were there points where you did abandon it and you tried something different and came back?
Yes, many, many years, until I just became old enough where I was saying, "Well, what am I gonna do at this age? This is
Right.
it." But
Yeah.
many years, a couple of decades, I said, "Gee, I don't know, maybe I should have stayed in radio. I was a radio announcer. Maybe I should have done this, should have done that. Should I get out?" I did. I sold life insurance for a while at the World Trade Center.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
glad I didn't stay in that job.
All right.
And, uh, and then other things, and yeah, so but then there finally came a period I think after Friday the 13th, things started to happen for me, and, then I knew I was in it for life.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, on that note, tell me more about that role in Friday the 13th. I mean, how did that come about? What's the story behind that?
Well, I happened to pick up a copy of it was a rainy day, and I used to pick up a copy of Backstage. Do you remember that
I
paper?
do, when it was still a paper and not a digital
Yeah,
newspaper. Yeah.
right, yeah. Well, this particular day, I bought Backstage, and I also bought a copy of Variety, which
Hmm.
I very seldom do. And I was leafing through the pages of Variety, and I saw an ad, now filming Friday the 13th, directed by Sean Cunningham. I had worked on an industrial film a few years earlier for Sean Cunningham, and so I called him and I said, "Sean, it was raining that day, so he was home." I said, "This is Ron Milkie. I hear you're doing a movie called Friday the 13th." And he says, "Yeah, yeah, we're doing that." And I says, "Well, anything for me in it?" And he said, "No, Ron, no, we're cast already. We're shooting up in New Jersey at a Boy Scout camp." And so I said, "Okay, thanks a lot. Keep me in mind." And he said, "Ron, this is before I was ready to hang up. This is long before cell phones." He said, "Ron, wait a minute, Ron, wait a minute. You know, there is something, a part that I think you'd be right for." I was going to play the part myself. The director was going to play the part. He said, "I'm going to overnight you the sides long before emails, and you can come up to the camp and audition." So I went over the lines and I took the bus up to Blairstown to the Boy Scout camp, and I read with all the actors. They had already been cast. They were
Right.
already shooting, including Kevin Bacon
Before he was a star, right?
before he was a star. Yeah, long before, and Adrian and Harry Crosby and Janine Taylor and, all of them. I can't think of their names, Robbie Morgan. And they were just great, but they had already been cast, so I read the part. And afterwards, I remember Harry Crosby said, "I'm unduly impressed." And Sean didn't say anything. So we walked up the hill to where I was going to get a drive back to the bus station. And he said, "You got the part, and we'll be shooting next week. Learn your lines." And that was it. And we worked very quick. We just did the scene in 2 takes, my whole scene in 2 takes, and, I was working with Kevin Bacon. I remember the coolest actor I've ever worked with. On the 2nd take, out of nowhere, he walks over to my motorcycle. I said, "What is this guy doing?" He's improvising. So I went over there like, "What are you doing, boy?" And I didn't say anything, but it was one of the great moments of the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was okay, and of course, then years later, the rest of us, not Kevin, he became too big of a star,
Right.
but the rest of us, we would meet up now for the conventions. We do them all over, conventions, and the horror genre just became enormous. The fans, just an enormous following. And I was in Germany, in Dusseldorf for one of their big conventions, and then I was in London 2 years ago, and all over the country. And that's provided a little bit of an income for me, and it's a wonderful experience. So these are people that, when they saw Friday the 13th, they were at an impressionable age, 8, 9, 10, and they were forbidden to see the movie. So somehow they either snuck into a theater or they probably saw it in the basement on a VCR or something like that, and it made an impression. And these people now are real big fans of Friday
Yes.
the 13th. They're all in their 50s and 60s now.
It's such an unbelievable story. I mean, who could have known that it would blow up to be what it ended up being? And the following over all of these years, people that still know this iconic role. And the thing that's so striking about this story is that you took that initiative. You reached out to that person. You weren't offered an audition to go. You reached out. And that initiative is such an important quality. And I think that ties in with that ambition and desire. You made that connection. You were able to reach out and network with this person that could potentially help you to have this role. And, again, maybe it was partly luck, but there was that initiative there was that.
Well, I don't know. It was serendipity or something because I never bought Variety. I never bought Variety that particular day. I don't know why. It was just next to Backstage. I thought I'd grab it and look it over. And if I hadn't bought that paper that day, and if it hadn't rained, another thing, because Sean was home, and we certainly didn't have cell phones then. And if I didn't make that call, all of it just seems to happen. So you sort of wonder sometimes. And I also wonder of the opportunities that I missed. And boy, I think a lot about them too. I remember, oh my gosh, so many things I could kick myself of not taking advantage.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. But it's still striking. And I think that that whole story, that whole experience kind of encompasses all of those tenets, those prerequisites that you're talking about, being in the right place at the right time,
Yes.
ambition and desire. I mean, obviously you had talent to bring to the table. You worked with this person who trusted you to deliver, but luck and serendipity kind of played into that part. And I think that it's probably healthy for actors and people just in general to kind of have that mindset of work hard at the things that make you happy and that you would like to do, but also recognize that it's not always going to work out, and that's okay.
Right.
Some of it is out of your control completely, and that's okay. I think people really suffer from the rejection, and that affects them in such a deep way that carries out into other parts of their lives.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
To be an artist, you have to have a sensitivity. And at the
Yes.
same time, you have to be tough enough to withstand the rejections, which are
Absolutely.
constant.
It's an oxymoron, right? It's you've gotta be sensitive with a thick skin.
Yeah. And also, talking about the prerequisite for success, it's who you know.
Right,
I knew Sean Cunningham.
right.
So I
But you
called.
but you capitalized on the fact that you knew this person because you worked with him before. I think that a lot of people, myself included, especially after booking a few things, I had this complex, I guess you might call it, of this is going to continue because I've booked things and I felt like I did good work and things were well received, that things would just continue to fall into my lap, and that's just not how things work. You have to be constantly taking the initiative and reaching out and networking and doing these things that, some people just don't do. And that is going to exponentially help with the possibility of success.
Yes, and of course, you sort of do less as the years roll on. Now, I people approach me. I get calls from people. I don't even have to audition. Would you be in
Right.
my movie? I did a couple the past couple of years. One was called Dark Tales, in which I was the lead, and I played an old man. I'm already an old man, but I played an even older man, and who was the projectionist in this old movie theater that was going to be torn down. And so I didn't like the idea, so I went there and I protested and I went upstairs to my little projection room and I'm there and they're telling me, "Sir, you have to get out of here. We're going to tear the building down." I was stubborn, old codger. I said, "No, I'm staying here. I got to collect a few things." And I start looking at these little short horror films that I had staved and I lose perspective. And so it's 3 films directed by famous European directors, one from Spain, one from Argentina, Ezio Massa, who directed the film. And in the to wrap it up, I lose perspective and time, and I go down with the building.
Mm,
So
hmm
I die watching films. So it's called Dark Tales, and it's already been distributed in Argentina and Spain, but we yet to have a distribution deal here in this country.
Well, I have no doubt that's coming.
I hope so. Yeah. Like I said, so everything the past few years, I got another call from a guy named Troy Burbank, and I was in his film, What Lives Here. And then he called me again a few months ago. He wants me to be in a new film he's doing, starring Deborah Harry.
Ah, yeah.
You know who she is? You're old enough to remember her.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that's called Christmas with Aunt Betty. And it's not a traditional family Christmas movie, if you catch my drift.
Sounds intriguing. So Ron, I'm curious, were there people in your life who helped you to believe in yourself in this life path as an actor or teacher, ways that or have there
Um,
been people that have helped you to believe in yourself the way that you've helped so many other people, like me?
um, no.
So do you think that was a benefit to you because you had to work harder? Do you think that
Yes.
helped you to develop a thicker skin?
Yes, I absolutely had to do it all myself, and I can't think of anyone. Well, my teacher, Sanford Meisner, he saw something in me.
You were an actual student of Sanford
Oh,
Meisner?
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
sure.
know if I knew that. That's absolutely incredible because I went to Rutgers and
Right.
I
Yes.
learned the Meisner technique at Rutgers, which that
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that I knew that. Maybe I did. If I did, that's I don't know why it escapes me, but
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible.
It's, I don't wanna get too esoteric for our listening audience, but it's not always workable, the Meisner technique. You know, if you're reading with some, secretary and she's looking down at the script and she doesn't give you anything, it's kinda hard to just act off that actor. You have to preconceive what you're gonna do.
Sure,
But if you're working with Robert De Niro, hey, then
you've got gold,
you go with it, right?
right? Yeah, I mean, so what do you do in those situations? When you've got someone that's not really giving you anything in return, and I've certainly been in those situations also, and that's
Well, that's what I teach, that you really have to have plan B and sort of decide what choices you're gonna make just in case you get nothing from the person, which is most of the time, the person you're reading with, and, sort of preconceive your choices and,
would you say that I feel like that's more film based. I feel like theater. Uh, I think it would be difficult to believe the person being cast if they're not giving you anything in return. I think a lot of the times film, it's more difficult to.
it depends, you know, like if you're, reading if you're up for a soap opera and you got your 3rd callback, you're gonna be reading with the star. And you're certainly gonna get enough from that person, be it Susan Lucci or whomever, the soap opera stars of, or a TV series if you're reading with Ice-T,
Right.
and that's when the Meisner technique really works.
Yeah. So, what do you hope that your students walk away with now? That the students you're teaching now, not just in terms of technique, but how they approach life.
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, Matt. You know, by the time I get them, they already know who they are, or even
Right.
worse, they don't know who they are, and, I guess I like to get people who get them young like you,
Right.
so that they're really enthusiastic and there's more opportunity. I get a lot of, even though these are wonderful people, I get a lot of dilettantes who are just curious about acting, and they come, and I got a lawyer, and I've had many police officers and detectives, by the way,
Interesting.
if you can believe that,
Interesting.
and, uh, and some do better than others, but I would say most of them don't really are able to make a life as an actor.
Well, I think that it comes down to that they're doing this, they're dipping their toes in rather than saying that this is what my life's purpose is. They don't have maybe necessarily
Right.
that ambition and that fire.
Yeah, and they do it because they love it. You know,
Right.
they enjoy it, and uh, I don't remember if we were doing showcases when you were in my class at the
We did a few. We did a few when I was there. Yeah.
producers club. Yeah, and then I believe I used you in a reading of Our Town. You
We
played
did.
the
Yes, you did.
lead in that a few years ago.
George Gibbs. Yeah. Yeah, that was a great opportunity too. In high school we did Our Town and I was not cast in that role and I was very disappointed. So it was an amazing thing for me to come and have that opportunity with you to play. And that was that's something that I frequently remember about being that age and being in that acting class is the life it brought into me. I really truly when I walked into your apartment or at producers club, I was ready to work. I had that passion. I just loved the freedom and the environment to play and to do it in a serious way, to be able to explore and express yourself. And I think that most people don't get that opportunity in life. And I think it's so important to be able to express yourself without filters. And you gave me that opportunity for multiple years.
Well,
It's a unique thing.
you were good. You had talent, and it was just taken from there. You know, you and your mom did the rest, and it was easy, you know, because you had the talent, and you had ambition and desire. You didn't know anyone, but you got out there and you got a manager and you got commercials and you did very, very well. You
I
know
was
what?
very fortunate.
Yeah. What we're doing now as we progress, now we're making films with my acting class. We've made 20 short horror
Wow.
films. Yeah. I have a student, Philip Pita, lives in Jersey City, and he produces them. And We write them together, and he usually stars, and I direct them. And we've got all of them on YouTube. And so we're preparing for our next shoot, and we're going to do it in a few weeks, called Window, which is a takeoff on Rear Window with Jimmy Stewart. You're probably
Huh?
too young to remember that movie.
Oh, no, it's a classic.
Yeah. And they're of the horror genre, because that's what Philip is into. So I use my acting class.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, utilizing something that's right there and the people that want to do it. And we have the ability in 2025 to create and do it the way that you want to do it and put it out there. It's wonderful. We have the tools at our disposal now at a very cheap cost, if not free, to be able to put out content, that might resonate with a lot of people. And it also gives you the opportunity to practice your craft.
Yes, and some of them are better than other. If anybody's interested, you go to YouTube/Scrodato Productions. That's Scrodato, Scradato Productions, and then all of them will come up, and you can take your pick of. I was even in a couple myself because we lost our leading man at a point where I just took over the part. But I love it. I love directing. I love it all. I love directing. I love teaching, and I love acting.
Amazing. So, I mean, you kind of just answered this, but I'll ask anyway. What brings you fulfillment now, and how do you define a good day in your life? Now that you've been doing this for a very, very long time, I mean, you still have this acting class. You're creating content with your acting class, and continuing to stay active. Are there any other things that bring you fulfillment now?
Well, a good day in my life at this point is getting a good night's sleep.
Good. Well, I mean, Ron, I'm so grateful that I got to have this conversation with you. When someone sees something in you, especially at a young age, it can shape the entire way you move through the world. And for me, Ron was that person. He believed in me early on, and that belief helped me to believe in myself. And as I reflect on all of this, I'm aware that part of what makes Ron's impact so powerful is how rare that kind of mentorship can feel. We all carry stories of the people who showed up for us, and sometimes stories of people who we wished had in a different way. But this conversation isn't just about acting or craft. It's about presence. It's about how much it matters to be seen, especially when you're still figuring out who you are. And it's about how one person's encouragement can become a thread that runs through your whole life. So if someone comes to mind while you're listening, someone who helped to shape you, or someone you still wish you could understand better, I hope that you'll let this episode be an invitation. Reach out, reconnect, and reflect. So thank you, Ron. Thank you so much for being here. It's truly an honor to have you sit down and have a conversation with me and about this kind of stuff.
Well, that's very sweet of you, Matt, and you've always been one of my favorite students who did well. And like you said, it depends on the person.
It does.
I have nothing to do with it. It's what your mother and father did before you come to me.
That's sweet of you to say. I mean, I agree with you, but you were 100% a vital piece of the puzzle to shaping me into the person that I have become as an adult, and now as a 41-year-old. The way that I enter into the world, and the way that I see the world, and to a large extent, I think is a result of the experiences and the lessons that I learned by being in your classroom.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, and this was really fun. I'm honored that you asked me to be on your podcast.
Absolutely. My pleasure. 100% my pleasure.